Imagine that someone told you that you no longer had the freedom to do what you want. Would you have the courage to stand up and say that's wrong? Well, this man did have the courage. The British took his country's freedom, and he told them it was unfair. He disagreed with their way of government and how they treated his country, and he decided to do something about it. Not only did he stand for what he believed in, but he did it through nonviolence. May I present to you Mohandas Gandhi.
Violence is never the key to success. The key to success is kind actions. When I was born in January of 1869, the British ruled India. They treated us harsh. They beat us and they made fun of us. I hated them. I wanted to go and make them leave our country. And what I didn't know was that later on in my life, I was actually going to do that. After I got my law degree, a firm in South Africa had heard of me and gave me my first job. Moving to South Africa wasn't a big change because they were also ruled under the British. So when I got there, British men made racial comments about me, about how there were no colored men in Africa that were lawyers. This is when I decided that I was not meant to be a lawyer, I was meant to be a leader. So I started gathering people together and protesting against the government. But after being arrested, I realized that I was no match for the British, and so I moved back to India. When I got back to India, the British there had heard of what I had done in Africa, and they were ready to fight me if I was ready to fight them. My plan for freedom was not to get into a war, but to simply just protest. My biggest protest that I led was against the SALT Act of 1835. I led many Africans on a 24-day journey and walked 240 miles to the coast of Dandi to produce salt without taxes. The SALT Act was saying that you can simply not, that Indians cannot make their own salt without huge amounts of taxes. And so after we made our own salt, the British government was furious with us, and they arrested over 100,000 of us. But when they realized that they could not hold all of us because some of us were too high in power, they met with the Indian government and decided to repeal the act and release us. After this, I started growing old. This challenged me because I could not do as many things as I could when I was younger. But I was still motivated, and many people were willing to help me. Soon after many protests, the British realized that we were not going to live by their rules. We wanted our freedom, and so they gave it to us. It was for the actions that I took in leading the people and our strong perseverance that we finally received freedom. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful speech. What do you think of violence?
Violence is bad, and it will lead you nowhere.
Let's open it up to the audience.
Would you say that your protests and strong will is similar to Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yes, because we believed that we could do things no matter what happened. We would just stick together, and we had strong beliefs.
Who was the most influential person in your life and why?
Probably my father, because he was just really strong growing up, and he was very high in our Indian government, and he never liked the British, and he always talked about how we needed our freedom, and he told me like how it would be successful, and he was the one that actually taught me that violence will never lead you to success.
Excuse me, sir, I have a question for you, Mr. Gandhi. What is your philosophy on the education of a society's children? documents that I've read about you, you've come across with a very strong idea of how you think the society's children should be educated. Can you speak on that?
Children should be educated strongly because with wisdom you can lead to many different successes.
Who do you think should be responsible for the education of the society's children?
The children's parents should be responsible for getting them into education so that they can lead into better lives.
Do you think your act inspired Martin Luther to not be violent when he went around and protested?
Yes, I do.
Did you have to speak different languages for like South Africa?
I did. I was a strong Hindu, but I also believed there was a whole bunch of different theories and teachings in many other different religions that I believed that were also true. And the Bible had many teachings that were relevant to my leading in nonviolence.
I'm sorry, that's all the questions we have time
What was your favorite character in the movie that you made?
My favorite character
In a movie.
in a movie. Probably Mickey Mouse, because he was my first, or as my own separate company.
Mrs. Munson?
Mahatma Gandhi.
I'm sorry,
Gandhi.
Gandhi.
Besides doing long walks as your silent protest, what other type of silent protest were you well known for?
My fast.
Okay, can you tell us about those?
There was one time that I was arrested for protesting, and so in jail, while I was in jail, I did a fast, and they actually didn't want me to die, so they released me from prison.
Mrs. Stadler, did you have a question?
For Amelia Earhart, I was just wondering if any of her, she thought any of her decisions led to any of the federal regulations for airplane flights, safety regulations.
I think some of them did.
Did you say the,
What language did you have to speak?
Languages. I spoke Indian and African, and I spoke some English too.
Mrs. Patterson?
I was just wondering for Anne,
Over thousands?
maybe hundreds, not thousands.
Okay. Mrs. Newman?
Gandhi. How many religions were in India at the time you were there? I know there was Hindu, and what else were there?
There was mostly Hindu, and there were some Christians.
Mr. Lee, you said that you went to America once. Do you remember what that was for?
It was for, I want to get